Hello, you are watching the Supply Chain Digital Show, brought to you by Supply Chain Digital Magazine, Procurement Magazine, and BizClick Media Group. My name is Sean Ashcroft, editor of Supply Chain Digital Magazine. Now, in this show, we bring you all the latest news, analysis, and opinion from across the world of supply chain every 2 weeks, right here on LinkedIn and YouTube and other digital platforms. Now, if you're wondering where our usual host Scott is, he's otherwise engaged today. So I've stepped into his hush puppies to present today's show. But I'm delighted to say that joining us as usual is procurement editor Georgia Wilson. Hey, Georgia, how are you today?
Hey, I'm good, thanks. How are you, Sean?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Now, a quick reminder at this point for all of you watching. Please do say hello by posting in the comments section underneath the show, and also go and vote in our LinkedIn poll. So onto that poll. The question this week is, how can businesses best reduce reliance on China as a manufacturing center? A, by reshoring, B, by nearshoring, or C, by digitally transforming. Now, I know we write about this kind of stuff in our magazines all the time, don't we, Georgia? And what are your thoughts on how this poll might turn out?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one. It's one of those ones where probably all of them will have a bit to play. I think it'll be close, definitely.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. They're all pretty vital, aren't they, to supply chains at the moment. We'll be sharing the results of that poll at the end of the show. But there's loads to talk about before then. And let's start now by taking a look at the latest supply chain and procurement news. So I'll kick us off here with a look at a couple of recent supply chain stories that have caught my eye. Now, the first of these is based on a McKinsey report. McKinsey, that prolific creator of business content. Now, the head is McKinsey shares supply chain digitization upskilling formula. And what this story is about is that McKinsey is following up on a 2021 supply chain survey in which it spoke to supply chain executives and found that just 6% of the companies that responded to that survey had a clear picture of what actually constituted strategically important skills within their own companies, which clearly isn't a great place to be starting from if you're looking to upskill your staff. And so McKinsey went back into the industry and spent time with companies who are actually performing well on upskilling, and from their dealings with those companies, they've distilled all their findings into a 5-point formula that other companies who are looking to upskill would do well to follow if they're to achieve success. So the first point of that 5-point plan is to focus on the skills that matter. The second one is to use diverse and effective learning methods. Then it's to incentivize participation and engagement with the upskilling program, and also to make sure the program is scalable beyond the initial pilot. And finally, and probably most importantly, is to make sure that any upskilling program is designed to improve the company's operating performance. So that's that story. And there's another piece I wanted to chat about. It's actually based on a BizClick survey that we've produced in cooperation with UST. Now, UST being the leading digital transformation solutions company. So we put a series of questions to supply chain professionals that are designed to find out, exactly how disruptive COVID has been to organizations. Also, how important proactive risk mitigation is when it comes to global supply chains, and also how vital supply chain modeling is to effective risk and resilience. We'll actually be discussing the findings of that survey at Procurement and Supply Chain Live, details of which will follow later in the show. The survey closes at 3 p.m. GMT tomorrow. So if you haven't already submitted answers, then simply follow the link in the comments section for the show beneath, and we look forward to seeing exactly how things are affecting you. But now on to procurement news. So Georgia, can you give us a couple of your own news highlights from procurement?
Yeah, so middle of last week, some interesting insights came out of the research and consulting firm Gartner. The firm's senior director analyst, Sarah Watt, highlighted that sort of the time is now for supply chain and procurement functions to adopt resource conservation strategies. So this approach is sort of now a must for these functions in order to be successful in navigating the ongoing challenges that are in the industry. So she also highlighted 3 strategies for organizations to deploy in order to drive this success. So those included adopting circular economy models, treating waste like a value-based asset, and preserving natural capital.
Sorry, George.
No, you go.
No, I was going to say that it's increasingly just seeing this in so many of the stories and features we write, where companies have to whereas sustainability used to be a nice to have, now it's a must have, and it has to be like a strategic priority, doesn't it, across almost every function.
Yeah, definitely. And sort of sticking with those sustainable practices, I spoke with Ted Pardy, CRO at Premise, to discuss greenwashing activities in the procurement industry. So when I spoke to him, he discussed how common greenwashing activities are in many industries, not just procurement, as well as sort of he discussed the current industry landscape when it comes to sustainability. So he highlighted the lack of complete supply chain visibility, which often results in organizations conducting greenwashing activities, and sometimes they could even be conducting it without fully knowing that they are. So he then sort of explained to me how the company Premise is developing crowdsourcing technology to provide those in the industry with a better understanding of where the materials that compose their products are actually originating from.
Yeah, I mean, it's super important for companies, isn't it? Because whether they, are greenwashing intentionally or not, when it comes, public knowledge that they have been, then it can really damage their brand, can't it? So thanks for that, Georgia. Now, remember, you can catch up with all the latest news and analysis on our website, supplychaindigital.com and procurementmag.com. That's still to come after the break. We'll be taking a closer look at some great features from the March issue of Supply Chain and Procurement magazines. And we'll also be looking forward to the Procurement and Supply Chain Live show taking place in London next month. And talking of Procurement and Supply Chain Live, we're delighted now to be joined by someone who will be speaking at that very event, Martin Rand. Martin is CEO and co-founder of Pactum.com. Pactum is an AI-based system that helps companies conduct autonomous commercial negotiations at scale. Now, Martin has deep expertise in this area, having studied advanced negotiations at Harvard University, no less. Welcome, Martin.
Hey, Sean. Hey, Georgia. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, thank you for your time. Now, Martin, I'd probably start by asking you a little bit about Pactum. What is it you do, and who's your target audience?
Yeah, so we use AI to conduct vendor negotiations for global enterprises. And the problem we're solving is that such enterprises have tens of thousands of vendors, and they can really actively manage the strategic ones because simply the scale is so vast. So we negotiate with the 80% to keep deals updated and to unlock value the supplier as well as the enterprise. And what we actually see is that in supply chain, this effect is even more starker, because we see what's happening in the world right now. There's rampant inflation. We're at 40-year high. There is war. There are supply chain issues and commodity price fluctuations. So we see that the transportation industry is moving to spot pricing more and more, and that of course means volume, and volume, handling volume with people is very tough. At the same time, what we see is that supply chains are being managed end to end, and that spells complexity. So complexity plus volume plus what's happening in the world, technology needs to step in there, and that's why we're working with Maersk and Walmart and many of the other large enterprises.
And I mean, nobody could underestimate the power of AI and machine learning, could they, Martin? I mean, it's mind-bogglingly clever, but negotiations by their very nature are fluid, complex things, aren't they? How can AI replicate this exactly?
Yeah, interestingly, we're bringing this fluidity back, because if you imagine a buyer, say, who has to manage such a vast number of suppliers that they simply don't have time for 80% of their suppliers to manage actively. And that means all sorts of the fluidity you mentioned has a long time ago disappeared from that. But if you think about it, if it's a machine entity that conducts these negotiations, a machine has unlimited time to find out what is the optimal outcome between the items that are negotiated about for both parties, unlocking value for both parties.
Sure.
So, Martin, if I could ask you a question as well, please. So negotiations are by nature fluid. So how can AI replicate this?
Yeah, so that's the same comment basically, that so the
well,
system.
Actually, sorry, but I mean, where do you see your AI tech being in 5 years' time, Martin? Do you think, because it's moving so quickly, isn't it? I mean, what kind of things will your product be doing in 5 years that it's not doing now?
Yeah, so we're now negotiating a lot of the buy side, but we're moving on into the sell side, and of course we're negotiating supply chain deals. And if you think about it, for some companies, buying and supply chain and selling is all that they do. So, and the way we have created the category of autonomous negotiations, that means there is no human involvement in this. That means the technology is going to a more abstract level. So in the future, people will need to explain strategy to the machine, and the machine will conduct the necessary negotiations to achieve that. The machine can come up with category strategies, for instance, not only doing negotiations as it is doing now, because it already has such a holistic view of the enterprise. And that's actually in the beginning you mentioned the McKinsey new report on upskilling. What caught my eye is exactly what we are seeing as well. So what McKinsey says is that as the complexity is rising and as digitalization is becoming more and more important, it is very important not to focus only on digital skills. Actually, digital skills are becoming less and less important. What is important is an holistic understanding of the whole supply chain, because as solutions such as Pactum come in, which take over a certain portion of management, and the machine does its own decisions, we need input. We need strategic input, and we need people to understand what's happening across the supply chain, and digital knowledge is becoming less and less important there.
It's AI and machine learning is changing people's jobs, isn't it, Martin, in the sense that it's freeing them up to be more strategic in the way that they work, and it's taking a lot of that heavy lifting away from them, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's going to be a really interesting development, across so many aspects of supply chain and business generally, I imagine. Well, Martin, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you at the Procurement and Supply Chain Show.
Thanks for inviting me.
This month, in fact.
Yeah. See you in London.
Sorry, no, getting ahead of myself there. Thank you very much, Martin. So we're going to be taking a short ad break now, but don't go away. There's plenty more to come.
As a part of the ecosystem team that's going to help the world continue to progress. My name is Brian Lilly, and I'm the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Zayo. Zayo built its foundation as a fiber infrastructure company. Zayo's mission is to connect what's next for their digital transformation, what's next in the future of the industry, in the future of their sector, in the future of their company. Enterprise has, in some of our cases, they have thousands of stores. Well, how do you connect those edges together into a core, but to each other? And that's really what we're doing across the United States, across North America, and across the world. Aggregating the edge and bringing that to the cloud is absolutely mission critical. And to me, it's the future of digital transformation, and it's what's next. It's an exciting time to be both a CIO, where you have more tools than you've ever had, and some challenges that are tough. And it's a great time to be Zayo, where we can help solve those problems.
Welcome back. Now, a show like this is nothing without the viewers. So I'm going to take an opportunity now to say hello to some of the people who have tuned in to us today. We have Ashish from India. Hello, Ashish. Also in India, we have Suryamani. I hope I haven't massacred your name there. Also from India. And from Tanzania, we have Victor. Hello, Victor. And who else have we got here? We also have Salim from Pakistan. Hello, Salim. So a huge spread of people from right across the globe, reflecting the global nature of supply chain and procurement. So now we're going to turn our attention now to the magazines. Supply Chain Digital Magazine and the sister title Procurement. The March issues are out now. So I'm going to kick this one off by looking at a feature from the March issue of Supply Chain Digital. In fact, this feeds in to what the news piece you were talking about earlier, Georgia. This is a piece about sustainability accreditation, so that companies can demonstrate that their sustainability credentials are pucker and upfront. Now, I was speaking to David McClintock, who's MD of EcoVadis, one of the world's largest providers of business sustainability ratings, and David was saying that it's absolutely vitally important that green accreditations and ratings have to be credible, otherwise they're meaningless, and they're also becoming so important now for businesses, especially multinational businesses who have global supply chains, because 80% of greenhouse gas emissions come from the supply chain, the so-called Scope 3 emissions. And so, David said that participating companies or companies that EcoVadis issue a rating have to go through a pretty rigorous process in order to earn that rating. They must provide formal, recent and credible documentation, says David, that reliably shows that the company sustainability performance is, fit for purpose. But he admits that on their own, such standards and ratings won't see the world hit its net zero targets, but they are helping to keep us on track, which is really important. So that's my magazine highlight from March. Georgia, what's your pick from the March issue of Procurement?
Yeah, so in the most recent issue of Procurement magazine, I spoke with Regan Smith for our 5 Minutes With feature. So Smith is now the global head of corporate procurement at Expedia Group, but prior to that, he was the vice president of global procurement for Visa. So in the interview, we discussed sort of an array of things that included how he found himself to be in the procurement industry, his proudest achievements and the best pieces of advice that he has received when he was trying to climb the ladder in the industry.
Sure, that sounds really interesting. Now, thank you very much, Georgia. Now, we've got so many great interviews and features in the March issues. So why not make sure you visit the websites for both supply chain and procurement, where you can read the magazines and watch out for all the video content too. Now, let's take a look at the results of our poll. It's pretty close. So just to remind you of the questions, the question was, how can businesses best reduce their reliance on China as a manufacturing center? And the options were, by reshoring, by nearshoring, or by digitally transforming. Now, the results of this are, with digitally transforming comes on top with 39%. Reshoring is next, 32%. And then not too far behind is nearshoring with 28%. So it pretty much played out as we expected, didn't it, Georgia?
Yeah, definitely. I think it will be interesting to see how the industry does tackle sort of these sort of kind of challenges.
It certainly will be. I mean, I imagine that most companies, if they're not already digitally transforming, are at least planning to. Reshoring and nearshoring probably is slightly less common because it's such a massive financial undertaking, having to refashion your entire supply chain like that. But they're all tied in together, as we've been saying. But thanks to everybody who took the time to register with that poll. So let's have a look now. We've got some important dates for your diary. As Procurement and Supply Chain Live returns as a hybrid event in London. Now, the theme of the event is risk and resilience, and it takes place in London's Tobacco Dock from April the 27th to the 28th. Maybe you joined us in 2021. If not, join us this time. But anyway, here's a taste of what it was you missed.
Good morning and welcome to the first day of the inaugural Procurement and Supply Chain Live.
It's wonderful to be here today just to share a little bit of our journey within Vodafone.
The suppliers were just outstanding. They were rock stars, without a doubt.
Everything can be supplied at very short notice now in all of these regions.
Such an honor to be a speaker here at the Supply Chain Live conference.
It's been a great audience. It's been some really fantastic speakers.
It's just great to be out and about meeting people face to face.
It's great to see real people in 3D and to be able to have that exchange of ideas.
The interaction, the networking, the relationships you can build has been phenomenal, and through Chest and Chase we can carry on doing more of this.
before that, we had something which is wonderful, and you must all try it. It's absolutely fantastic, called PowerPoint.
There we are. Well, speaking as a man of words, PowerPoint gives me a nosebleed every time I open it. So not one of my favorite apps, as you well know, Georgia. Anyway, so we'll be having more on that as we get closer to the show, with regular updates in the magazine and, of course, on the website. Also coming up this month to coincide with Women's History Month, we're publishing our own top 100 women, one for supply chain and another for procurement. And they will be with you very soon. So keep an eye out for those. And okay, folks, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for this episode. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please do tune in again and join us in 2 weeks' time. Thank you for interacting with us if you're watching live and for taking part in the poll. And remember also, this show is available to watch on demand. So please do share it with colleagues and anyone interested in supply chain and procurement. So thank you to Georgia for being a brilliant contributor again, and to our special guest, Martin Rand, CEO and founder of Pactum. Thanks to Kieran and the rest of the video production team, to Justin and the editorial design team for the great looking magazines, and to Kaylee and the marketing team. This has been a BizClick Media Group production. We will see you next time.